Our speaker today is Biz Thornton, whose pronouns are he, she. Biz is an aspirant to the UU ministry based in Austin, Texas, and is passionate about the power of creativity and storytelling in the work of healing, transformation, and currently serves as the interim minister of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry and the chaplain at Wildflower UU Church in Austin, where she is. When she isn't preaching from a pulpit, you can find her reading tarot cards, drawing zines, watching horror movies, and trying out new vegan recipes to share. Please welcome Biz.
Good morning, y'all. Thank you for having me this morning. I have been admiring y'all's stained glass windows in particular all day. It's a very beautiful church, so thank you for having me today. In the land of Egypt, there is a river, and once upon a time, a woman put her son in that river to save his life. She wove a basket out of papyrus and made it watertight with bitumen. And then she put her and Moses in most Bibles you'll find. I don't know if there's a Bible where you wouldn't find it. Maybe Jefferson's Bible doesn't have it. Anyway, as UUs, we have a lot of different relationships to the Bible as a sacred text or as not. The holy text through which we might get a glimpse of the sacred. So, the story of Moses is a story about many things. It's a story about what we owe to who and why. It's a story about belonging and not belonging and then belonging. It's a story about home. But perhaps most of all, and perhaps most famously, it is a story about freedom. When was the last time that you felt free? Have you ever felt free? And would you know it if you did? As soon as I ask myself that question, I hear Nina Simone in my head singing, "I wish." So maybe we don't know what freedom is. But maybe you've caught a glimpse, and maybe that baby in the basket caught a little of it too. Let me set the stage a little bit better. Whenever I tell a story from the Bible, it's like context, context, context. I have to set the stage and set the stage and set the stage. It's a long book. It's a really long book. And it all flows in together. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to get started on the Bible. I'm already on the Bible. We're already doing Exodus. Okay, so the book of Exodus tells it like this. Long ago, in the land of Egypt, there was once a man named Joseph. He was a Hebrew man who lived in Egypt for a long time. Joseph gained the Pharaoh's trust by interpreting Pharaoh's dreams, and so Joseph became a powerful man in Egypt and ushered in a time of great prosperity. But after he died, a new Pharaoh rose up, and he forgot all about Joseph. He no longer saw the Hebrew people as his countrymen, but rather as a dangerous foreign force living within Egypt. He was born. But the brave midwives secretly refused, and they let all of the babies live. Eventually, the Pharaoh notices there's all these alive baby Hebrew boys running around, and he gets really angry and is like, "Come to my office." I guess he didn't have an office. "Come to my chambers and come tell me what's going on with all these babies." And so the midwives did give him an explanation. They said, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They give birth too fast. By the time we get there, the baby's already there. I couldn't do anything about it. Sorry. So thank you, midwives. Unfortunately, then, of course, the Pharaoh realizes that his plan with the Hebrew midwives is not going to work, and so he demands that any Egyptian kill any baby Hebrew boy that they find. And this sounds awful. And it sounds familiar. Those in power slicing up the population into good and bad, native and foreign, rightful owners of land and illegal criminal invaders. Many of our so-called leaders may not have literally called upon us to murder children, though I suppose that's arguable at this point. They do seek to destroy all the social supports that allow children to survive and thrive at all. When children go to schools that are defunded, and parents don't make a living wage, and healthcare is unaffordable, and food assistance programs are whittled down to nothing, and still we send our children to school with fear in our hearts for their safety from gun violence, how is our world so different from Pharaoh's? When I think of children who are marginalized further by poverty, racism, transphobia, and more, I see it even more clearly. Some children are being especially targeted. So I'm a graduate of Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, where there's an annual conference called Hesed. It's organized by students of color, and it highlights voices of color in justice work around the country and around the world. There's always an online component. I'm like pitching it to you a little bit. If this sounds interesting, there's an online component, and you should go. It's like here. Anyway, so in 2023, the Hesed keynote speaker was the Reverend Dr. Stephen Ray, who was the president of Chicago's Theological Seminary and the president of the Society for the Study of Black Religion. And in his 2023 Hesed keynote address, the Reverend Dr. Ray talked about why marginalized children are targeted by hate groups. When I heard him talk about it, I felt like I understood the world so much more. He said that the hateful targeting of marginalized children has two interrelated effects. It teaches children that the adults around them cannot protect them, and it teaches adults that they cannot protect children. And this completely shatters communities emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. I felt the reality of this deep in my bones when he said it. It brought illumination to my mind and extreme, deep grief to my heart. I thought of all the trans kids I had met throughout my life and how badly I wanted to protect them and how afraid I always was for them. I thought of people mocking trans kids at press conferences I had been at and how I didn't know how to make them stop. I thought of all the trans kids trapped in abusive families and how trans adults have become painted as threatening interlopers in family lives. And we can't get to each other, and I can't protect them. And I thought of all the stories I've heard during this past legislative session and after, stories of trans kids and immigrant kids who are being especially targeted right now. And I imagined how this might play out all across the world and all across time, and I wondered at the depth of pain created by this tactic. Children separated from parents, from communities, from any adult who can take care of them in boarding schools, concentration camps, conversion therapy camps, plantations, factories, detention centers. And more broadly, we learn the same lesson again and again, watching others in our communities of any age being struck down with the violence of the powerful. We learn, I cannot protect you, and you cannot protect me. Here and now, far away. I see people learning to protect their communities. I see people refusing to do the violence being demanded of them. Maybe they tell a couple of cheeky lies to Pharaoh in the process. They gave birth too fast. They didn't get there in time. Here I would say, if the long arm of the law comes to us, let us remember this story and then proceed to be even wiser than the wise midwives and remember the ancient and sacred practice of shut your mouth and call a lawyer. That's my advice today. This is the world of the Pharaoh, where that joke makes sense at all. This is the world that baby Moses was born into. Can you believe we're in and I haven't really talked about Moses yet? Get there, that's what I'm saying. You set the context and context. It's a long book. It's a long book. And there's a bunch of really wild stuff in the back. Anyway, so long ago. I know, sorry. That one's long too, and they keep coming out with more. And Mel Gibson has so much to say. Okay, we're moving through it. Long ago, in the land of Egypt, a baby boy was born into that world, where the Pharaoh wanted him dead. And so his mother hid him for 3 months, his cries filling her with terror until she could hide him no longer. She wove together that basket and made it waterproof and sent her baby off in the river, while his older sister kept an eagle-eyed watch on him. I don't know if the baby had a name yet. I actually think he didn't have a name yet, but his sister's name was Miriam, and she grew up to be a prophet herself, and in fact, maybe she already was one in her own way. Really fast, so Miriam took her baby brother right back to their mother, who was able to raise him and no longer feared his crying at night. Perhaps Miriam to speak cleverly to power, but she also learned not to believe the lie of Pharaoh. She did not think, I can't protect you, you can't protect me. She believed, I can protect you. So she followed her brother and saved him. Her faith made her brave. So thanks to his sister, Moses grew up. The Egyptian world of the powerful saw him as the son of the Pharaoh's daughter, but his family knew the truth. He was their son. But the truth was sort of complicated. He was given an Egyptian name by the Pharaoh's daughter, Moses, and he seems to have grown up ignorant of the suffering of his people. He saw this suffering for the first time as an adult, and Moses reasonably feared for his life, and he fled to a land called Midian. There, in Midian, Moses met Jethro, the priest of Midian, and Moses married one of Jethro's 7 daughters, Zipporah, and they had a son. And Moses lived in Midian for many years, where he tended to Jethro's sheep out in the wilderness. I don't know what Moses was feeling while he was out there in Midian, but I wonder what this was like. Faced with the overwhelming suffering of his own people, he murdered someone and then fled the country. I wonder what his childhood taught him. I wonder if he wasn't able to learn from the midwives like his sister Miriam did, because he had to pretend to be Egyptian, because he couldn't live with the rest of his Hebrew family. I don't know. I know that my own transness draws me to certain metaphors, but they are the ones that I have. And I see in Moses the stories of many people who have been severed from ourselves and from our people. I wonder if this childhood taught him fear and isolation. I wonder if it taught him to believe the lie of Pharaoh's violence. I cannot protect you. You cannot protect me. I wonder if that's why he ran away and stayed away for so long. One day, long ago, now in the land of Midian, Moses brought Jethro's flock beyond the wilderness to Horeb, the mountain of God. There, beyond the wilderness, far from any place he had ever called home, he saw a fire. Imagine you're a shepherd, charged with the care of your father-in-law's sheep. They go this way and that, in search of food, in search of land. You keep them safe from predators and from dangerous cliffs. And you have felt drawn towards a great mountain beyond the boundaries of any place you have ever traveled with these sheep before, perhaps much further than you've ever been in your life. Here with these vulnerable animals who are under your care, far from familiar shelter, far from any person you know, and without any way to contact them, far from home, you see a fire and no people. Will it blaze out of control? Will it destroy this wilderness? Will it eat the shrubs and the sheep and all the wildlife here on the mountain? Will it spread from plant to plant until there is nothing left on earth at all? In your fear, you stare at the fire and you see it consumes nothing at all. It is flashing out from a bush, but the bush is not consumed. It remains. How strange. Moses, also believing it was very strange, felt that he had to get a closer look. And as he turned his eyes towards the flame, the voice of God came out of the bush and shouted his name, "Moses, Moses." And Moses replied, as countless prophets before and since have replied, saying, "Here I am." And there in the land of Midian, in the wilderness, beyond the wilderness, God spoke to Moses, and he sent him back to Egypt to free his people. Moses was scared, but God talked him through it. Finally, he caught up to his sister, who saved him all those years ago. Finally, his faith made him brave. But how did that happen? How did his faith make him brave? What did God tell him is the question I ask before I tell you the answer, because I read this long book. So when Moses felt scared and uncertain, God had to talk him through a lot of different fears. He had a lot of them. And God had answers to all of them because he's a know-it-all. I guess you get to be a know-it-all if you're God. It's fine. But I want to tell you what part of that conversation always struck me the most. So the midwives and Miriam knew how to speak. They were clever, and effective. Moses was not. When God tells him to go back to his people and tell them all that God has told him, Moses says, "I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor even now that you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." And God tells him basically, don't worry about it because I make everything happen, so I'll just make you good at talking, which I think is a pretty funny answer. And it doesn't work for Moses. He's like, I don't know about that. He says, oh, my Lord, please send someone else. I've been there. And God does get mad at him for a second, but here's the important part. After God calms down, he says, okay, well, what of your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know that he can speak fluently. Even now, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, his heart will be glad. So in his fear, Moses still believed he was alone, and it made it impossible for him to do what he had to do. And then God sent him what he needed in that moment, another person. And this is how Moses learns to begin to disbelieve the lie of Pharaoh's world. This is how Moses begins to believe, I can protect you. You can protect me. This is how his faith finally made him brave. We have been living in a frightening world. The rot of injustice in our country runs deep. And in the past 7 months, maybe longer than that, we have seen an exhausting of everything that our faith tells us is wrong. People afraid to leave their homes, running out, loved ones getting sicker and sicker, people disappearing. I bet we've all got stories in this room about 2025. I'm scared and I'm exhausted, and I bet you are too. This is the part where maybe I would do a call to action normally, right? Rise up, let's do it. And if that's what you need right now, that rules. Rise up, get to it, do it. But here's what I want to give you instead. Get your rest where you can. Take your time alone when you need it. And when you find yourself running to Midian, running into the wilderness, running beyond the wilderness, take heart. For in that unknown land there is a fire which burns without consuming, a sacred chalice of love which shines in the darkness, a sparkling reminder of the interdependent web of all existence of which you and I and all things are a part. It will remind you that you are not alone, that it is not too late, that you can learn from the midwives and learn from your sister, that your brother can speak for you if you cannot speak for yourself. It will remind you that the impossible may happen. A bush may burn without being damaged. A staff may become a snake in the hands of a prophet, and our people will be free. I can protect you. You can protect me. And here we are together, and we cannot help but be together. The nature of all existence makes us inseparable. By this faith, we will be brave. By this faith, we may do the sacred work of justice. For by this faith, when love itself calls us to that justice, we will be able to turn towards it and speak the words of all the prophets who are called by God to free the people. Here I am. Thank you. May it be so.